Hopihiri, Porarama, o te whakaaro, o te tangata, o te aroha. Te pō e hiri nei ia tātou, Māori ora ki a tātou, Kaomire, hui e, taiki. And I will do the English translation. May clarity be yours, may understanding be yours, through reflection, through personal endeavour, through respect, the virtues which bind us as one. May we be filled with well-being. Haumie, hui, taiki. Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being here for our first full council meeting of the new term. It's fabulous to see so many bright, shiny faces here, and the new special welcome to our new councillors, and welcome back to our councillors. So we do need to start with a declaration for Peter Rebel, which I will ask Peter to take the seat over there, please, and read the declaration.
I, Peter Alfred Riddle, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interests of the Thames Coromandel District the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a councillor of the Thames Coromandel District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2022, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, and any other act.
Thank you, Peter. I might just sign that witness statement now. So it's all thank you. Congratulations.
Very open.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have any apologies? There being none, could I get a mover and a seconder, please, for the apologies?
Happy to move.
Terry.
Second.
Rika, thank you. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Public forum. Now, do we have people who wish to speak in public forum today?
Yes.
There's 3 speakers here.
Excuse me. Yeah, yes.
So call Alison, please. Yes, thanks, Alison. We have a microphone there, which is just for reinforcement in case people at the back can't hear. You're welcome to use it or not.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to all of you on making it through to council. We've got a wonderful council here. We've got some great supporters from around this council chamber today, from our push over the last 3 years, really, in the most recent round for a skatepark in Tairua. So I'm Alison Smith, and I'm part of the Tairua Recreation, Sports and Recreation Trust. As you know, as you may know, we've fundraised 150,000 towards this facility. We raised that in less than 3 months, and this was all through community donations. We came up with the concept of a one-play club, so that's $1,000 donations each. Some people then get together, solo mums gave $100 each to create one $1,000 amount. We also got great support from various national charitable trusts. However, we had to give the bulk of this money back because of the delays that were caused through no fault of our own. we're confident that we can get this funding again if we need to. I've witnessed this council give the project across the line at Kopu within its last council, and that was a $7 million overrun. So we believe that this particular facility is not a ridiculous amount that cannot be found, and we're really hopeful that we'll support it today and support the 93% of residents who have been requesting this facility and have shown their support for the Coromandel-Colville site. We know that there's probably a little bit of lobbying going on in the background. We've had a huge amount of that in our time wanting this facility, but we're here to give a positive message and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Alison. Sorry, Alison, just before you go, are there any questions of Alison? Peter?
Alison, what was the amount of money that you were being offered that you needed to decline because of the delay?
So we had one amount of $30,000, and yeah, obviously because of the time frame, we had to give that money back. We had one private donor in our community who generously gave us a $50,000 donation. It was AIDS Colour, and they've been amazing supporters. So yeah, again, we are confident that we can assist this council if the council is going to continue to work with us.
Have there been any new donations since that money was returned?
We haven't been asked as a trust to find more money, so we know that we can if we need to, and I was really pleased to see the positive attitude, as I say, with the $7 million cost overrun at Kopu. This attitude of we'll get there. We just have to make sure that with all the work that's been put into this already, it's shovel ready. This is a shovel ready project. This could be one project that this council could tick off your list and get it done after a 30-year wait. So I feel like it's a great opportunity for you guys. And yeah, we are confident we can continue to work and get some more money in.
Thank you, Alison. Any other questions? Thank you. First call in line, please.
That was a little bit shy about coming up, but
Well, we'll discuss what we're going to continue.
can we come up together?
Oh, okay. Do you still want to say a few words, Viv?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very friendly, and you know most of us.
Well, we sort of run the day last night about this, so I'm not sure if there's sending out the information.
She needs to sit down.
I wasn't aware of this last night.
So my name's Romy Brown and this is Vivian White. We're both on part of the Tairua Sport and Recreation Trust, which is the latest of many groups that have been pushing for this for the last 30 years. I've personally been involved in this project for 20 now. Started when my child was 2. He doesn't skate, and I'm still at it. I'm here today to implore you please to approve this out of cycle request of fundings to get this project over the line. As you know, the community support here is massive. This project's been through 3 community plans. It's been through 3 10-year plans. It's been through everything. It's literally been consulted to death. It is actually ridiculous the amount of consultation that's happened on this project. Basically, one of the latest costs, which was a $60,000 cost, was essentially forced on council by a very small minority of people who don't want the project, who happen to be very well heeled. So that $60,000 Veros report basically was undertaken to ensure you as councillors that this project has been through full transparent consultation and that council has done everything right according to the book. so that, to minimise the risk of any litigation, basically, downstream. Recently, right through the 30 years, the project has always had a strong majority, about 70%. And this recent round with Bylaws, again, 93%. These are the people in our community. And a tiny majority, minority, funded by a wealthy batch owner who happens to have a batch opposite the proposed skate park on Corey Park. Has stopped this project for over 20 years, and he knows that delays cost money.
Sorry, I just need to make you aware that we have to leave personal information out of this, so keep it general.
Okay.
Without identifying any individual or potential for identifying any individual.
Sure.
Understanding feelings.
Basically, we sort of feel that, our community has been held to ransom and our children have been held to ransom for 30 years, and enough's enough, guys. No more compromise. It's the delays and stuff, they're no fault of our own. And we do need your approval to get this across the line today. I mean, it is a 30-year project. It's had full continuous consultation. It has had full continued community support. And as Alison alluded to, overruns in this day and age are normal anyway, with COVID and obviously other factors. You have recently approved without any consultation an additional 256,000 for the carbon wharf upgrade. That project also went double over its budget. And we've also had, over this process that I've, throughout the period that I've been involved here, we've had two mayors that basically succumbed to political bullying. Glenn Leach first and then Sandra Gully, and these are actual facts.
We don't have the backing of our community board chair and another community board member who obviously have friends in that realm too, which we think is really sad because 93% of our community want this. And we're fighting our own community board together. We've had to fight individuals in this council together. Why is this agenda with the other two agendas asking for the overrun of money? It looks like someone inside here is lumping it together to make it look like the other two agendas. We're sceptical. We haven't trusted your process in the past because your process has not backed us.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Rowena.
Can I just ask a question? In fact, it's your family that gave the land, is that correct?
Harry Corey Wright,
Yeah.
my grandfather, gave the land far and beyond reserve contribution, not just the Corey Park domain for rugby and sports, for the whole community, not just for rugby. It was for rugby and outdoor recreation. And yes, he was very generous. He used to ride his horse over here to council meetings and would come home at 3 in the morning and sleep on his horse because the horse knew which way to go over the Neesville track. There's a long history of that Corey Wright family being very generous to the Tairua community. And, it's a slap in the face to have one person get a few mates together and have stopped this for so long. With the compromises, here we are again, we're going over all these compromises with a certain individual, and we're going to end up with another youth zone, not even a skate park again.
Okay, thank you. I know, I understand that you're...
We're very frustrated.
Yeah, thank you.
So we just really want you guys to do the right thing and support the wishes of the community, which is your jobs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your contribution. Smith.
Hello, I probably haven't met many of you yet, but I'm sure I'll skate past you guys one day and you'll be yelling at me, get to the skate park. Or there's a skate park to go to. Most of my life I've been told that skating down the street. Most of the time I do make my way to a skate park to skate. Recently in Coromandel, I've been here for a year and I've had to travel half an hour in every direction to skate. That's more so that just as I realise most of the towns around here are quiet and I don't want to create most havoc on the streets and disturb people's peace. I find having a skate park and a facility, a place for individuals like myself of all ages, have somewhere to be located where most of you would send us when you see us skating down the street. I find that the designs that I've seen recently for the skate park all consist of each obstacle that can be used in many different ways for kids that want to run around and play on the ramps to adults that want to use the ramp as a rocking chair. I think with the current, recently, if any of you have seen, we've just had our Nationals New Zealand skateboarding event, and that has promised New Zealand such a great future for the skateboarding industry and given so many kids and adults and young adults like myself the opportunity to take our passion somewhere different and somewhere further, hopefully. It's given us the opportunity to possibly take it around the world or finally be seen around the world. Much more, I think the funding that is necessary for the skate park is there and should be presented for the skate park, as half the funding that we do use in the society doesn't go to the right things. And if we want to keep providing for what we usually are working towards, which is our children, our youth, and our growth of our civilization, I think this is something to provide for these individuals, to create more and to shed more light for these individuals, to create more.
Thank you, Utah. Very well done. Any questions of Utah?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So could I get a mover and a second, please? Robert, Kelly, all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much to those who have taken the time to get up and speak at public forum. It's much appreciated. We're going to move to item 1.3, any conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts that need to be declared? There being none. Do I need to move a second for that? Okay, item 1.5, amended minutes of 20th September Coromandel Community Board. Could I get a mover and a seconder to receive this motion, please?
I'll move it.
John Morrissey.
Yep.
Seconder. Robin, thank you. Any discussion on this motion? Do you want me to read the motion? No? I'll take it as read. Any discussion? Okay. All right. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? John Grant, are you hearing us?
Yes, I am, Len, thanks.
Thank you. Item 2.1, out of cycle budget request for Old Street Bridge. Could I get a mover and a seconder for this? I'll receive this, please. Delhi and John Morrissey. You're welcome, Eddie Barley. Any discussion on this? Terry.
Yeah, I'm just, Ed, if I can just enlighten us a bit, you're talking about the replacing of this bridge. Is it like for like?
If I may, it is like for like, but it is to new standards. It has to comply with current standards, which the previous bridge did not.
But it's still a one-way bridge.
Still a one-way bridge, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, item 2.2, out of cycle budget request for storm events emergency works funding. Could I get a mover and a seconder for this, please?
I'll move.
So Martin
Yeah, I'm happy.
and Terry, thank you. I'll take the motion as read. Are there any discussion on this?
you want to highlight some, highlight some of the funding options here, you'll see that we've got 2 or 3 funding methods through Pottery.
Yes, the one-time funding for it is under, there's 2 methods for it. One is the enhanced FAR subsidy rate of 71%. That is for works over 10, or total cost of works per year over 10% of the annual maintenance budget. Works in new financial years that don't meet that budget threshold are done at 51% FAR rate until such time as we top the 10% threshold again, after which they're actually then subsidised at the enhanced rate of 71%. It's a little bit complex.
Yes, complex.
But it's the way the agency funds emergency works.
There is a detailed explanation on page 17 how it works. It is fairly involved, but there is a detailed explanation there.
So another one just through the Ed is, so this money, so Pottery took away their footpath subsidy and all that type of thing. Is this because it's emergency? It's a different funding model.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. I'm just trying to get my head around. You know, we've lost money in some part of it, but only around emergency replace or recovery and work.
That's correct. Yes, it's different funding streams within the agency.
Right. Yep. Good.
Peter.
So, just for clarity, essentially what you're saying in any financial year, the first 200,000 or whatever it is only going to be funded at 51% or whatever, and then for the rest of the year, it'll be for these emergency things, it'll be 71%.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. So whenever we get over that threshold, it might be in August. For the rest of the year, they would be funding those things at 71%.
That's correct.
Okay. What has to happen to hit the 95%?
Basically, the 95% will be catastrophic failure. You'd be talking about major issues, multiple bridges being lost. It would be an emergency response. Potentially, you'd be talking about response to a thing like a volcanic eruption or that sort of level.
Could I just clarify that? So essentially what you're saying is the more storm damage costs us, the higher the FAR rate. That kind of goes up.
It goes up in steps, yes.
Yeah. So the more damage we have, the higher the FAR rate.
Okay. So in 2018, would we have got to the?
No.
Okay.
Tairua did, didn't it?
Tairua would be a good example of a 95% funding.
Right.
Delhi.
So it's looking at 2 options, the option and Bylaws option 2, because we need to return the infrastructure to the accessibility and level of service that it needs to operate at.
That's correct, yes.
My understanding is option 1 is a very low level of repair, which doesn't lose service to the capability of the vehicle. So the recommendation from staff is option 2. Any further discussion on this?
Yeah, so just a question about the 23-24, where we're putting $1 million into that of the project, $1 million into that 23-24 year. What we're saying at this point, that'll only qualify for a 51%.
That's correct at this point.
At this point,
but the likelihood is that we will have another storm event.
Yep.
And that we will have to, we'll use up the budget, if you like, the budget line. We will be tipping over 71% on future storm events.
Right. So that, in fact, could be a situation where that whole $1 million does qualify for a 71%.
No, the first level only ever qualifies for the 51%. You have to hit the 10% threshold, and after that, all subsequent funding is at 71%.
The 10% is 10% of the approved organisation's total cost of the maintenance program for the year. So that is a budgeted figure. When we hit 10% of that, my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, when we hit 10% of that, that triggers the next level, and then it goes to 51% plus 20%.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And that happens in storm events.
Through the chair, timing on this, Ed. So if this is approved, when will this work be completed by?
We've already started work on the first stage clear up, obviously. We need that to reopen roads. The major works in repairs, if you like, building repairs, we've already started looking at the design options on those.
Right. And around Wakakatai's work on the state highway, does that sort of blend with what your work, any work they're doing with your work? Is there any
There's
cohesion?
no synergy, no.
No synergies.
No.
Okay.
So this is purely remediation after storm events, bring things back to the way that we need them to be.
That's correct, yes.
Any other questions? All right, there being none, I'd like to put the motion, which is to adopt, I'll put the motion to receive the Elsa cycle budget request. Can I get a mover a second? Ellie and Robin, and then I'll put the motion for option 2. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ed.
Good report.
Item 2.3, out of cycle budget request, Tairua Skatepark. I'd like to thank you, Kyle.
And we do have Graham Edwards on the Veros project team online.
Online, thank you. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the motion, please. Robin and Gary, thank you. Right. I'll ask Eileen and Graham to present the report.
So I'll take the report as read. Have you any questions that you would like? That's it.
Any questions? John Grant, any questions?
Well, I suppose we can't ignore the elephant in the room with a couple of letters we've just had, one yesterday afternoon and one this morning. Notwithstanding those letters, I think that it's the same as, and I think that we just have to stick with our resolve.
Thank you, Gary.
Peter, can I just ask a question about the fund? If the council were not to approve this motion, what would happen with the money?
So the money will just stay in that fund. It can only be used for CapEx works on council reserves.
Right. So it could potentially be used to beautify something like in Coromandel, for instance.
No, it can only be spent in Tairua Park area.
Okay, thank you.
If it's this, Donna advised me there's nothing else in this LTP that the money could be tagged to. So if it's not this, then it's an LTP conversation about what it could fund.
And it has to be Tairua.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to support this motion. I think it's we've been through quite a lengthy process over the years, and it's been through a committee board and come back to council. And I think one of the key aspects of the decision made back then was to support the Skatepark project plan and commences the earliest opportunity to progress as quick as possibly. And I think here's an opportunity to do that. We've got an opportunity to find some money to make it happen. So I support this project moving forward. And
Thank you, Terry.
Just touching on the point that Gary made about some of the letters, they came late last night, well, yesterday afternoon, and one again this morning. I haven't really had time to digest the one that came this morning. But does this work in with the neighbours and the users of the park? Sorry, it's probably the better word to use.
Sorry, just to put some clarity or some perspective on, there was a letter that came in last night. It wasn't actually asking for any action. The letter last night was a reminder of what had gone before. The letters are not on the agenda. And so in the absence of any action or anything on the agenda apart from what's in front of us, I'd like to leave it aside, because they don't have any relevance unless there is something that we need to action, and there isn't anything. So that might come up later on, but for now, the item on the agenda in front of us is purely this. Ellie.
I'm also obviously been on Mercury Bay Community Board and coming up to speed with the Tairua Skatepark project. I'm confident, as Terry has said, that the process and consultation that has been gone through is robust and has happened in a legal and appropriate fashion. So I would like to voice my support for this project, getting the shovel ready and happening as soon as possible. I think that community's waited far too long.
Thank you, Ellie. Mark?
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that at this point, we're just making the decision about the out-of-cycle budget request. Obviously, we've got a fantastic looking design included on our agenda, but we're just approving the out-of-cycle budget.
Just
at this point.
The out-of-cycle. So if we keep it at that, there might be more things to deal with further down the track, but for now, that's all. Any other discussion? There being none, I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Thank you again for coming in. Item 3.1, dangerous, defective and insanitary buildings policy review. Can I move a seconder to receive the motion, please, Rebecca? Can I get a seconder, please, for the motion? Yeah. Peter? That nearly came off the rails, didn't it? Okay. So thank you, Brian. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, good morning. We're ahead of schedule, so I think Karina's going to join us. She's frantically running up the stairs.
Okay.
But I'll do my best. So we're just going out for public consultation on our policies. So it was up for review anyway next year. And
sorry, Brian, you just want to use the mics just back here.
Technology. Yeah, so this is our policy that looks at on the sanitary buildings. And we're just essentially making some slight legislative changes. If you all haven't met Fringe, is our building unit manager, the one that's successfully taken us through the last IQ audits, a new council. And I just think that briefing on some of the slight legislative changes that everything has to add to the consultation document.
Not to the consultation document, you can enter basically the two changes that happened. The changes are mainly around the reformatting, which is just taking something of operational processes and then making it more like consistent with how policy should be. And there's also the inclusion of the direction how we deal with buildings if there's ever an emergency in the district.
So this is it's the review. We're approving this going to public consultation, which starts on the 11th of November, runs through the 12th of December. Are there any questions or discussion, Terry?
Yes, I just noticed through the chair that the earthquake side of it's taken out of it, which is good, fantastic, take the beast out. Can you give us some indications where this has been used? And have you got any examples of where this policy has been?
On the dangerous and sanitary affected, not specific examples, but since 2018, we've probably issued approximately 15 a year. Right. And it's 40 dangerous, 30 sanitary, and probably 10 dangerous and sanitary combined.
So that would probably be just some examples would be if there's large fires in the district would come in afterwards, and have to do assessments and the like.
Wasn't from what the studies they did in Christchurch with the earthquake there, they found wooden buildings, that type of structure was far less liable to earthquake than the other traditional ones that came down. That's certainly what my engineer told me when I had to provide on.
That earthquakes are taken out of this. Earthquakes.
Yeah, that's why it's taken out.
But when we were, I was part of the rebuild of Christchurch or the assessments, and some of those buildings, as a building officer, I would say they were dangerous, but then the engineers came along behind us and said, no, because they want people to stay in the homes. That was a completely different situation, and they actually said, no, they can live in those homes, even though I would classify them as dangerous. But completely different. But the earthquake sign has been taken out, and that's now covered by national policy.
That's good.
Thank you, Corinne. Any other questions, Peter?
Yes, can I just ask a question about the consultation? I may not be reading it particularly well, but it felt to me like it was a reasonable sort of a shotgun approach with the consultation, albeit a double-barrel shotgun. I didn't get the sense that businesses or business owned landlords, business landlords, were specifically being targeted with the information by getting a letter specifically addressed to the owner of the business building saying this is the situation. Have I misread the document?
This applies to all buildings, not just commercial buildings.
Yes.
And I have to check with Kate, but I just contacted the legal firms and the Business Association, I think, so I didn't confirm that.
So,
through the year, we've targeted engagement to specific business associations and some from previous policy to those again as well. So we will be looking at more targeted to.
Okay, so just for clarity, so the owner of Winslick's business building, whoever that owner is, will get a letter saying we're out for consultation on this policy.
There'll be the general procedure that has been in place on previous buildings, so we were aware of some that we had complaints with the targeting. So whether that building had issues, I'm not aware of, they would just be part of the general public.
So the answer to my question is no, is that right?
Yeah, the answer to your question.
Right. Could I request that consideration be given to specifically targeting landlords of businesses?
Sure, I just took it through when we went through state the earthquake prone site, we did identify specifically target those businesses. What the request would be here is targeting businesses that may not have a dangerous sanitary element to it. So quite often our dangerous sanitary issues will be in residential properties where people have undertaken, say, access building work or installed fireplaces without consent and things like that, rather than commercial buildings. So I would probably say that there's not a specific target to the commercial buildings in our pedestrian core zones.
Sorry, that's fine. I'd just like to ask a question of Peter. What is your concern with targeting commercial buildings in this way? Because I think it applies across the whole spectrum. Peter, what specifically?
I guess I fundamentally think if we're talking residential buildings, it's likely to affect a family of 3 people. If it has an impact on a commercial building, it has an impact on the people who go there for whatever reason. It has an impact on obviously the people who are running the business. But just commercial buildings to me, there is a bigger impact of something around this.
Can I just ask for clarity around what regulations we have in place which separate commercial operations from residential operations. Are there separate regulations that are applied and enforced for commercial? Because I know there are when it comes to food service and things like that. So is there a separation there, or do they cross over under this?
When it comes to the Building Act, there's no separation between commercial and residential in relation to dangerous or sensitive buildings.
So
Case by case.
this policy covers residential and commercial.
Correct.
Is there a problem with what, as Peter requests, a specific targeting, and Law has already identified that targeting can go to specifically businesses? Is there an issue with doing that?
So I think we've said that we're targeting business associations already. But in terms of, say, let a drop for every individual business, that will just be the time required by staff to complete that until the day before.
Time cost, and I don't support it being done myself.
Rob.
Just a question, in terms of those commercial premises that you're already going to because of other parts of like the Health Act, when you have to have a certificate and it says, you know, what they're allowed to do and all that sort of stuff. Is there proactive opportunity for the inspector who gives that certificate to say, oh, that beam looks like it has been shorn off and is now unsafe? Is there then provision for them to be able to report that under, if they're there for the Health Act, if they can report it under this policy?
I would be very concerned if someone in the Health Act actually on site and declared being said as being safe.
So the answer would be those staff members, if they do see things that are outside of their area of expertise, but they do notice something, they'll come back and speak to your technical team.
So yes,
so quite often our health staff or even our RMA monitoring might see work that doesn't look up to standard. They'll come back to our building team and go after.
So does that allay some of your fear about the potential for dangerous activities happening in places where members of the public could be and where staff members are in commercial?
Well, I don't have fear.
Okay. That's another.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
John.
Thanks, Len. Just a question in regard to the removal of this, or the passing of responsibility for earthquake ones back to central government. Just a concern that I have in regard to particularly sort of Thames being an area with many older buildings that probably don't meet the standards. And there will be a crossover here with some of those being not up to general building standards as well. How do you handle the crossover there between the central government and local government responsibilities?
As I say, that this is taken office by our government, but and we are in a low seismic area here, so it's not hopefully we don't have any earthquakes, but we do have a process in place. We have gone around and identified buildings potentially earthquake prone. We've sent letters out to those buildings. We've completed all of Thames, Bombatar, and Nelly Fitiana. So we've contacted those owners and they have 12 months to actually supply to us an engineer assessment.
So John, just to clarify that our functions still are delivered at a local level, so no assessment. It's just the policy has been removed from the aspect removed from our local policy and it's now comes by national policy, but the function of going and doing the earthquake prone work is still left to our staff.
Right. Thanks.
Does that help, John?
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? There being none, I'd like to put the motion, please. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you so much. Now, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bill. We are running ahead of schedule. I'd like to suggest that we don't break for more than tea. We carry on. Yes. So the next item on the agenda is 3.2, 2023-24 annual plan. If I get a mover and a second to receive the proposals, Ellie and Terry, thank you. I'll ask Aileen to do a full intro to this, please, and then we'll to speak to that.
Right, yes, so just by way of a little bit of context, either just a broader introduction to the annual plan. So every year council has to do an annual plan, and at the end of the annual plan year, council does an annual report, which measures back against the annual plan, what is it that we achieved, what didn't we achieve. So what I just want to do is flag that the annual plan is under considerable pressure from the outset. So over the next 18 months, council needs to do an annual plan and a long-term plan. So we're kind of going to end up running two processes sort of together, both of which include piece of work and got some quite big demands, particularly in the finance and corporate services team. The LTP is going to be more complicated because the three waters been removed out of it, and there's still a whole lot of question marks about how that looks and detail around how that will happen. The other complication is that DIA have now told us that if we're going to change anything in our capital works projects around the three waters, we need to go through a process with them to get approval for that to happen. And the other matter that happened just this week is that Audit New Zealand have told us they're deferring our audit that's already late. So we should have already adopted our annual report a couple of days ago, and it's already delayed because audits are under-resourced, and they were due to come in December. They've now advised us they're coming in March. So what we have going into this annual plan process that Leslie's about to speak in detail is that we have all of these things layering upon each other to create, it's starting to feel like a perfect storm of bureaucracy. And I can see Hayden over there's got beads of sweat appearing. So I guess I just wanted to flag that as we go into this report, so that you appreciate the very big storm that this potentially sits under. I haven't even thought about what I could take away where they sit, but it'll be another.
For our school.
It's a virtual storm.
Thank you, Thomas, on October the 7th.
Yeah.
Leslie.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Nice introduction from Aileen. I don't know that I have much to say, except this is just signalling for you that work is underway on the annual plan and the LTP, actually. We're running in parallel. This just sets out for you some of the differences that we've identified between what's in the LTP and what we're thinking about currently. And it also provides you with a bit of a time frame around the annual plan process. Happy to take any questions. As you can see, we are identifying the curbside rubbish collection as a key difference, but also the co-promoter increasing the budget for that, the municipal building review, the new fees and charges. We have some revisions in some of this work program, and then the revaluations and the increased depreciation costs. The overall rating impact that will have to be developed.
Thank you, Terry.
Here through the chair, the revaluations is a concern to me. It's a big number, and I just understanding the impact on that and how that will flow through. Is there any comment on that?
I wouldn't want to make any comment in detail, but Hayden may be able to provide a written change.
We're still working through that as part of the whole process, but yes, it will have quite an effect on depreciation.
Do you think it'll reach significance?
Hopefully not. It'll be significant.
It might not be a fair question to ask how at this stage. Preparation is still going on.
Yeah, so it's quite, that's a big number, and it's going to have an effect on our bottom line.
And we're flagging that now. We're flagging it in the report, and there will be further. This is just the beginning of a series of reports on the annual plan and on the issues to do with the annual plan that will come to you over the next few months.
So we will have workshops specifically on this, so that the information as you working your way through.
That's right. You'll get workshops, and you will have a report, and you're going to be asked to make decisions.
Thank you.
big things.
Yes, I mean, we live in interesting times, things are changing, things are. Any other questions on this?
Just one more maybe. So, Aileen was talking about merging these two plans, these annual plan and the long-term plan. Do they have to work side by side? Is there any way of them? It's difficult to, I know, to understand. I've been through a couple, but.
Yeah, they don't merge. They
don't.
They're separate plans. The long-term plan sets out what you're going to do for the next 10 years. The annual plan sets out what you're going to do in the intervening 2 years between the time that the 10-year plan is reviewed.
Yeah.
They're quite separate plans, but they're related.
Yeah, there's statutory requirements, but really because of what's happened now, the Auditor General's our auditors come back and said we can't. We're excused really because we can't do it.
I don't know that we're excused. It just means that our annual report is going to be later.
Yeah, but it's not our fault.
No, it's not our fault. The audit has already told us that they're going to be late.
Yeah.
So we won't be able to produce for you an annual report that looks backward on last year in time for the beginning of this new annual plan year, as it were. So,
and the point, I didn't mean merge, what I meant was the 3 work streams that now lay in parallel, but when they implement one at a time, now we've got them laying on top of each.
Yeah, so it's going to be, there's a synergies between that we can work. Difficult with it.
we have to be trifocal. Yeah, trifocal approach. Yeah, they're all running in parallel. The annual plan relates to the long-term plan, but it is a separate plan.
So I can ask one more question, sorry. What about more support to do this, make this happen? Do we need to beef up that side of it?
It's something Donna, Hayden and Leslie will be discussing in the coming weeks.
Thank you. Martin.
Yes, I just had a query about the timetable. And it talks about, as a reference in there, to a have your say event or a hearing. I just wondered what is there any particular reason why we're looking at the have your say sort of drop-in type thing? And also, is there any reason why it's presented there as either one or the other?
Currently, we are looking, my team, the policy and planning team and comms communications team are looking at ways that we can engage better with the community and ways that we can actually invite the community into our process more easily. We're just currently thinking about, and we're probably going to seek some legal advice about the hearing process as well, which is quite a daunting process for our community, to see whether there's some ways of relaxing it and having more of a user-friendly approach where maybe councillors actually go out into the community and there's an opportunity for people to provide their views in a more informal way, how that fits into the process.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I ask is that during some of the recent hearings and submissions that we've had, with the ability to be able to have people online, and people have felt, I think, a bit more comfortable about I'm not having to, sit up the front there where you are. I can do it from my computer, even with the camera on or camera off, and then still having their say. So yeah, I think I'm just sort of interested about that. Well, one or the other, as opposed to a mix of, because some people are very confident to sit up where you are and do it, and like doing it in a very formal way rather than a public meeting thing.
Yeah, so we're just looking at ways and means of bringing people into the process better.
Yeah.
And making it a little less scary, but still keeping it legal.
Yeah, let's keep it legal.
Thank you, Leslie. Do we have any other questions of Leslie? Okay. So I'd like to put the motion. Did I get the rules residential received?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Do a great job, Leslie.
Good luck.
Thanks to Kate.
Good luck.
Thank you.
We are doing well for time. Item 4.1, which is operational decisions under bylaws for delegation to the chief executive. Alison. Bring a mover and a seconder for item 4.1, please. Peter and Gary. Welcome, Alison.
Good morning. Through the chair, I'll just give you a brief overview of what this report is about. It is essentially the mechanism that is required to authorise staff to carry out a lot of the administrative work of the council. So at a time, given that a new bylaw has been made in relation to maritime facilities and freedom camping, it's timely that we have delegations given to the chief executive so that she can then manage staff to carry out these administrative decisions on your behalf. So the decisions you make today will enable you to do that. Happy to take any questions.
Any discussion? There being none, I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Well done. Thank you, Alison. Item 4.3. Here we go. Item 4.2, exploration of the epidemic preparedness COVID-19 notice 2020, which essentially takes the emergency provisions and reverts back to the pre-COVID situation. Can I get a mover and a second?
I'll move that.
Yeah.
John and Delegation.
Can I make a suggestion here? I think we need to go back to them to say, what planet are they on? This is just ridiculous.
Should we use different language?
If you can temper it, but it just doesn't make sense. Like that emergency, or that council meeting we had at the beginning of October, that was done by teams. What's going to happen with road slips, all sorts of other things, matters that just, and what's going to happen, for example, if you are attending by, the word they use is remote attendance, will that count as attending the meeting? Because you need to have 3 consecutive, if you're off 3 meetings, will that be counted now?
So just to clarify, my understanding is that it does count. You can attend, you can vote. The only thing that...
I don't think you can vote.
Yes, you can.
You can still vote.
Still vote.
Okay, well,
It's got to have a quorum, live quorum.
A live quorum.
And a chair.
And that in itself raises issues. We had a discussion this morning with governments around this, because if we have, for example, an extraordinary council meeting, we have had in the past, which is convened to sign off something that is time critical, and the meeting itself is only 10 minutes long, you drag people in from all over the place to get a quorum to sign off on a 10-minute meeting. So I would like to see us go back to LGNZ, through LGNZ, and ask LGNZ to consider making a submission on behalf of the councils to municipal local government and ask for reconsideration of at least that element, the quorum element. Is there any other elements of this that we would like to see? And there will be some that are contentious. One, the emergency powers to delay elections, for example, was part of that mix. I think there's some people that would be concerned if that was reinstated, but the quorum element and any others that you might consider. So, Terry, and then John.
And just to mention, we had a meeting with the Minister Mahuta, who thought, in fact, that we weren't going to go back to that. We were going to keep the current thing. So she was a bit concerned about it too and raised it as an issue.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So maybe that's getting up the right channels now.
Yep. Totally. Yeah, look, I totally endorse what you said, Gary. It felt like we'd reached 2022 and now we've been knocked back to 2017. So do we need to put in an additional bit in the resolution then that we want that course of action followed, or are we just happy to do that?
I don't see why we couldn't.
Yeah.
Are we okay to put a note in there?
It's part of the resolution and then it's there. So I'm happy to get that put in. I think I've moved it.
Well, I'll second you. Yeah, let me just give an example. Yesterday, I attended the parole board hearing by remote link. You cannot attend them live in person now. That's the way they've adopted it. And government departments all around the place are having remote attendance, and it's working perfectly well. So I just can't see why we, as you say, gone back to the.
So just to clarify again, we can attend, we can vote remotely, it's just the quorum.
Okay.
This doesn't necessarily need to be in the resolution, but I'd like it reflected in our correspondence with LG and Z. The ability to have an online quorum really enabled this council to have a joint co-governance committee for our shoreline management panel with iwi. And we did have quite a bit of trouble getting everybody into one room. And so being able to meet online and having that quorum online really enabled us to do work that was otherwise very challenging. So can we please note that somewhere in the letter?
And I think we are one of the councils, because of our geographical spread, we are one of the councils that is particularly affected. Neither of them
Comment from me, I think that these are just details and that's
Yes. Absolutely.
Something like that to 2020, and I think it's been lost in the broader picture of everything that's now ceasing because COVID has seemed to be, sort of over. And I guess we failed to, as a nation, we failed to learn what went well from this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think LG is absolutely the appropriate place to take it.
Perfect.
So Ari and Esther are working on.
We'll just share this thing.
Okay. So John Grant, we're going to put the revised resolution on the screen. Can you just let us know if you can see that?
At the moment, Lynn.
Attendees.
So Robin, your comment that is not part of the resolution, but you want that noted?
Ari and Esther were nodding in a very improving fashion, so I feel confident. Thank you.
Does that only, just saying at council meetings, presumably that's council as an umbrella, so all meetings underneath our.
Should we put council and community board there? It's done.
Just to be
very good, Martin. Look at that.
Of course, various subcommittees, etc. I don't know. At all official council meetings?
Would council?
I don't know.
Committee meetings be covered?
Yeah, it's probably just semantics. I apologise.
It's all those government's roles, isn't
it?
Yeah. Official council, that's very good.
Okay, so should we put the motion? Any other discussion?
Does that read remote attendees to rather than and?
Sorry. Or and count them as.
And also count as quorum?
Just the remote attendees and count, not quite reading.
But I'm sure a beefed up letter will be going.
And yes.
How is this one?
Cool.
Can you please make that, I would feel better if it did actually say community boards and committees.
Yeah.
Thank you, Art. Okay. We're all happy?
Yep.
Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? John Grant, can you see that on your screen?
I can't really know.
Okay, we can email that.
Yeah.
Just
Read it out.
community board and committee meetings?
Yes.
Tidy up any comments on it.
So for John's benefit now, should we read it out there in its entirety?
John, if we read it out.
Yep.
So the motion is part 2 of the motion requests staff send a letter to LG and Z requesting that 25B be added to the Local Government Act to allow remote attendance to count as quorum at all council, community board and committee meetings. You okay with that?
I'd have to be, wouldn't I?
Yes. We would. Okay, so did we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you. The motion is carried.
Chief.
Item 4.3, Chief Executive.
Okay, so a little bit in today's report, and I just want to speak to a couple of things. Then Hayden's going to give you a bit of a walk through the financials. So you're going to see the financials at every council meeting. So we thought it might be useful to just point out things to look for and so on. But just to start with 3 waters reform item that's mentioned in here. We're expecting the report back from the select committee on the 11th of November. And that potentially will become law before Christmas. Once it becomes law, I mentioned earlier that there's a provision that says that if we change any of our 3 waters program, that it will go through a DIA process. So we've flagged DIA via a number of different places that we're quite concerned about what that process might look like and how that may conflate with audit processes and create delays in our annual plan and in our long-term plan. So we'll wait to see what that looks like when it comes through. We met with the Associate Minister of Local Government, Kieran McNulty, a week or 2 ago, and we expressed our concerns, particularly around new projects that might drop out of legitimate planning processes, like, for example, our 10 spatial plan. In the normal course of events, we've been now taking some projects and putting them into our financials, as well as taking them to the district plan. So we sought his assurance that the process of DIA for us to allow to do that wouldn't be cumbersome. And he's come back with some nice paragraphs that we're not quite sure what the detail means. So I've asked his interface manager to clarify the details of those commitments in the letter. But we can circulate that letter so you can see that. Mayor Lynn and the acting CE, Donna, met with Minister Mahuta and Deputy Mayor last week, and I gather had a similar conversation. The interface manager was here yesterday with us, talking through Bruce and the team around what happens to staff and the organisation on the 3 between now and the entities being enacted. The types of things we discussed is whether the entity would commit to some sort of lease arrangement with TCDC to house the staff, how long. We talked about which positions they are wanting to know about, and also talked about the corporate impact, because you've got staff in the whole organisation that have little components of 3 waters activity. So the staff are putting together a really comprehensive outline of how the staff are expected by the 3 waters report. So that's really good, and they complimented us on our engagement at staff level and about how far ahead we are, which is awesome to hear. So I know there's been some politics over just post-election around 3 waters. So what we thought we would do is come back to you in a workshop environment and just step you through what's happened, where this has come from, because it's quite complex and there's pluses and minuses right across all different parts of council. And we've actually done what you call a balanced scorecard review, where the staff went through a whole lot of different questions to see what the impact of different aspects of the business were, and came up with a kind of an overall, good here, bad here, that kind of approach. So we thought we'd step you through that so you can get that complexity before you sort of form a view. Yeah. So that's the plan for the next sometime before Christmas. Just on the Resource Management Act, and I'm sorry, I've got a stray heading in the report that has nothing next to it, which is probably appropriate, given that it's about to be introduced into the House, as I understand it. And we had a little bit of background during the induction process about the likely content of it. So, of course, submissions will be due probably at the end of January, making us work through Christmas to do the submission on it, which is kind of normal. And the future local government report came out, the draft report came out last week, and that's probably around to you. Yeah, so some really neat things in there. The key points I take out of it was the promoting citizen-led democracy. And interestingly, I've already had a few random emails from people going, oh, TCDC's got a good model. Haven't talked to you about it. Partnership with Māori, which obviously this organisation needs to do a significant amount of work on going forward. Quite a few directions around wellbeing being more of a core function of councils going forward. Stronger relationships with central government, and there was some quite interesting discussion around more equity in the funding of the fencing area. So we've also sent you, or we will be sending you around a list of meeting dates with the panel holding sessions in Tairua, Rotorua and Hamilton that some of the elected members may not get along to. It feels like quite an important document for us in the coming training. Other matters of interest, the Tairua Sugarloaf Board, you will be aware there's an appeal on that now, and a number of parties have joined it. And on the last day, council staff decided we should put a holding appeal as well, such that we can be party to any discussions that may happen. The directors met yesterday to talk about the way forward, and they had some pretty good discussion around that. The Responsible Friend and Camping Fund, we have got a letter that got sent to Appointed District Council. So I've emailed them saying, please update my email address. But we still like, what's the number, 50,000 out of that fund. And Next Task Force for Jobs, some good news there too, and that we've been allowed into the program, and we've got the draft of a funding application with the various people seemingly nodding at it at the moment. So we'll look back how that goes as we continue. At this stage, unless there's any questions, I'd hand over to David.
Just before you disappear, Aileen, just going back to Three Waters. Yeah, well, I don't know what's ahead of us. This government currently appears to be on the ropes, and one of the blows that's put in there, I think, will be that it starts on Three Waters. Having to notify DIA of any work we do, obviously I'm aware that's going to impact on staff workloads. What degree of work has to be done before that triggers and we actually do have to involve DIA? If there's a main street out there, we certainly shouldn't be worrying about notifying about that sort of thing. Is this just major works?
This is if we change our program.
They change the program at all, so the works doesn't affect it all. It's just if we change the program. We're not aware. You're not aware of us looking at any changes at the moment.
Conceivably, yes.
Conceivably, yes.
Yes, in this annual plan, I think there's projects where you may want to move around, move stuff out, move stuff forward, put in new stuff, but particularly dropping out of the spatial plan. And so if we want to do that, I don't think it's so much a workload as opposed to a potential delay that will create timing issues on it.
Do you think it would be helpful if we have our workshops to see the pros and cons, which may sort of make us feel what should go forward or not go forward?
That's the intention of the workshop, because a couple of things. We've got the committee coming back on Friday this week, but also there's new information coming out almost on a daily basis. So we're just concerned that we have that information in front of us and an up-to-date state of play before we go too deep into the details. Is that your assessment?
Yeah, and we flagged this issue in no uncertain terms with DIA at multiple levels, and they're getting it from all councils. I guess the pushback from DIA is that they want to make sure councils aren't gaming the system.
Yeah, sure. I know they would.
Yeah,
I can understand that.
So when we talk about program, we're talking about just the annual plan and not the projects that we have listed now. Long-term plan?
Both.
Both. So it includes the long-term plan.
Yes, it does. And we had a discussion yesterday with them about what does our long-term plan process look like, because we might need to change the program. But then come 1 July 2024, it needs to be not in the LTP. So yeah, they have actually advanced that because the same question was coming up everywhere they went and they didn't have an answer for it yet.
So again, it's just like I say, it's changing almost on a daily basis. They're still working through. We're trying to get answers. They haven't got them, but next week they might have. So
it's not a Three Waters question, so we will need more.
One more Three Waters.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
So I sat in the Zoom meeting with the CL4 group, CL4D group, and obviously they've had reaction after the three mayors have put up their proposal, and they were going to write to all the other councils outside of 33 council to see what their feelings about that. Is this, will that go back to obviously government for some consideration, or do you think the die has been cast?
That's above my pay grade and totally a
Political one, that one.
One of the challenges with what C4LD are doing is that they're asking for responses to be at a mayoral level. Yes. And there are a number of the mayors, including myself, who were saying, well, hang on a minute, I need to run this past the council and get councillors involved so that we all have an opportunity to discuss this. And the pace of some of the changes or some of the, particularly the statements that they're asking for, doesn't allow that. And I'm asking them to just hang on. We want to talk about it as a council first. Yeah. So there's going to be a balance there. That there's quite a lot of push and quite a lot of pressure, and we don't know yet whether that's going to have any effect on the trajectory of the legislation. It's just too early to say. And to be fair, Auckland, for example, are in a bit of a different situation than what we are. They work under different frameworks. So once we get to our workshop, we have more information in front of us, and we know the report back from the select committee. I think hopefully the picture will be different.
So mine is still Three Waters, so I can jump in here. I just thought I've read some of the C4LD releases and things they've put out, and there's a little part in there which I think is a little bit disingenuous when they say that, well, basically the government is now considering what the government is considering is what C4LD has proposed, but there obviously were working groups where 40-something odd recommendations which were largely agreed to by the government. So I feel that C4LD are somewhat over promoting themselves as far as what they've been able to achieve, and LGNZ's done a huge amount of work already with those different technical working groups and things. So I think we just have to be a little bit careful that we're not saying, oh yes, C4LD were fantastic, look at all they've done.
So again, I'd like that balance to be there. I'd like input from the councillors who are very reluctant to go out and say, I'm the mayor of Coromandel, I think this, because I really right, are we
down the Three Waters?
Different kind of water. I was thinking about Tairua Tahi. In the previous training, we appointed 2 elected members to be directors of the company, one of whom is no longer an elected member. So I'm just wondering when we get to re-examine that decision.
So I'll ask Aileen to speak to that.
Second installation is standing down, and the council will have to consider what's responsible.
Okay. So in the new year.
But that's probably not going to come up until March.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'm all good. My questions have been answered.
Okay, there's no further discussion. We'll ask Aileen to talk to you.
What do we get up the results?
What's that?
What do we get up the results?
Oh, that's attached to me.
Yeah.
Do we need to go through those line by line, or are we just taking those as read?
It's not quite good to have a bit of a feel about the financials, and I think each financials are made, so good to see some nice stuff.
What I was hoping Hannah would do is just flag to you how to read these. So that next year, that's what it's after you'll know what sort of things to be looking at.
Yeah.
Sorry, just before you start, Aileen, are we sharing?
Yeah.
So, John,
Yeah.
I can see that, Lynn.
Great, thank you.
So it's
This is a good one.
Sorry. Hey, yeah.
I don't need one.
Thank you.
So, President Chair, I just wanted to sort of give you a bit of a rundown of our monthly report and sort of start with sort of the first page, which is basically council's P&L. It's its total P&L, so it's got its revenue and it's got its expenses, and these are sort of described format from Sanotu, which all New Zealand sort of release, and they basically set out how we need to sort of set out our financials. With the total page, the one thing to remember here is that in terms of revenue, it includes both capital and operating revenue, and often when you look at it, if you go to the bottom of the, you can just scroll down to it. So, often people see the surplus, year-end budget surplus of 11 million. In fact, we've got a whole lot of money lying around. It's not the case. That money's actually already sort of allocated to capital projects for the most part, all reserved. So, it's not a case that we've got all this money and it doesn't quite work like that. So that's probably one thing I'd just call out on the first page. So what we do is we break this down on the next page. We basically split the two out. We have our operating, our capital sort of P&L, just to kind of split it out to give everyone an idea of how we're sort of operating. So in terms of operating performance, this indicates how our activities are really running in terms of operating. So if we go to the bottom of this, at the moment it says that we have we're better off the budget by 1.9 million. So that suggests we're in quite a good position so far. But given we're only 3 months into the financial year, it's really early days, and we tend to start a bit slower anyway. So it's very much early days. Down below we have sort of commentary. We put a number next to each one. So if it's more than sort of 100k or sort of material, we'll write a comment as to why there is that variance. If it's less, then we consider it material.
Hey, can I just go back to the first slide? I just think it's really important. What I found difficult when I came first is these the first 4 columns underneath under the expense. Those one, their personal depreciation, finance costs, other expenses. If you just explain what fits into those, it really helps people understand.
Our personnel costs are all our salary and wages of basically
run the business.
Our depreciation cost is all the depreciation, assigned to replacing our assets in the future. So this line here is the one line that's going to be quite a problem. It's coming into the next annual plan, because we've got this increase in revals, and it's all of a sudden going to cost us more money to replace them in the future. That line. Finance costs are related to our interest costs.
Yeah, so there's not running the business, it's interest only.
It's interest only.
Yeah.
It's our external interest. What we pay up to cost of our loans. Yeah.
Can we ask on the way through? So I notice on your next page you don't make any reference about the 97k, almost 100k of extra interest.
Yeah.
And I'm just concerned that that's a signal that we're going to end up the year with a interest blowout.
Yeah. So we set the bar at about 100k, but I mean that's pretty close, and they probably should have commented through to the copy from that basic stage. We are seeing interest rate pressure, no doubt about that, but we do have quite good swaps in place at the moment, so we take out interest rate swaps to offset some of that interest rate pressure. So those swaps are basically kind of protecting us at the moment from some of the interest rate pressure we're seeing in the market. But as those swaps kind of, run out or mature, then it'll have to go to the market at a higher and there'll be higher interest rates.
So what you've got about where we'll end up on June 30th? With finance costs?
Well,
$500,000 now.
Yeah, the finance costs are also run by our capital program. So if we don't deliver with our capital program, we're not going to borrow as much as we thought, so we're not going to have as much interest costs. So at the moment, with some of the sort of pressure we're seeing on the capital program, I would expect our level of debt not to be what we've anticipated, just because the program isn't going to quite hit what we'd hoped. So I expect the interest rate to be relatively, probably a little bit more than 97, but not 8.
Okay.
David, is LGFA, is LGFA, if they are only external funding, yes, and where are their interest rates?
They're on about the, I think they're getting towards 3%.
Thanks.
So yeah, and the other expenses is basically everything else that, like all about the
program of the capital works.
Yeah, maintenance costs and.
It's the big number, but it's.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On the next page, we've got just a breakdown of our capital revenue. So we've got development contributions, they come in via basically, these new subdivisions or basically new additional units of demand. Contributions, subsidies and grants, that will be mostly local funding or our capital road project. I think probably be a little bit of DIA funding this year as well. Gains, so we sort of our interest rate swaps will move up and down. Invested assets are where typically developers best land or assets into council due as a condition of the subdivision.
As a way of not contribution?
Yeah, to a condition of permanent consent usually, yeah. So it's like, you've got to have so much green space. Yeah. Right, yeah. So there's those 2 pages where they add to the front page. And then we basically go into all of our activities and we run sort of a traffic light system. So green is good, red's bad. So if you go up to the side, you can see all the areas that's down. Use that areas. If you look at this sort of column here, you'll see so like community research. The only thing I would say sometimes is materiality. You need to take materiality. It might be red, but it might only be $6,000 over a $5 million budget. It can swing, margins. So, a lot of that. And sometimes a lot of them, the company will say a lot of it can be timing. So it might be over today. A good example is sort of the often we get a whole lot of grants out at the start of the year. And sometimes the budgeting phasing isn't quite right. And you might be over, but at the end of the year we're on. So hopefully the comment will say something like, over because the grants have been paid out in month 1, but expect to be on by the end of the year. So what typically happens is what happens is we do an October reforecast and a March reforecast where we do some of this rephasing and try and get, we look at these, obviously our financials and talk to the different budget holders and work out, how we're going to sort of basically, where we're going to end up. Is it, we were anticipating the final position of the year to be, and then bring it back to you guys and say, hey, this is our October revision, this is our March revision. So yeah, we do it by there's one of these slides for each of the group of activities. So we've got one for representation, one for solid waste, one for planning and regulation,
one for protection of the people environment, roads and footpaths, three waters, and then the community spaces we break out per ward because they're locally funded. So there's one for each. There's one for Mercury Bay. There's one for Flora Park. There's one for etc. So yeah. Yeah, so that's what we got this. So it's not really.
Sorry, Hayden, do you mind just speaking back in 2 seconds? Solid waste collections.
Yes.
Just a little bit of background on that.
Yes, so solid waste collections, I think if you look where that is one in the collection space they are over. But that's one that I would typically say the budget phasing needs to be sort of defined, because with solid waste, what happens is we get a lot more revenue during the summer months. And that's sort of like Connie just sort of saying, finance goes to the budget manager who's, right in the detail and asks, hey, your collection costs are over, what's going on here? And then they come back and say, well, they give us the comment actually. We could just go down this bit. There's a comment that I think. Number one, unfavorable due to budget phasing as expected, bag sales will increase October, December.
Phasing and phasing, yeah.
But we've also got fuel costs.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Peter.
Three of them make the comment there's nothing significant, or it's not significant. So perhaps maybe we could go to page 137, just highlight that as an example. So no significant variances to report, but the coastal and hazard management is 77K of supposed to be 227. So that's usually 37% blowout. The Whangamata Falls is 147%, and the Coromandel Library is 200%. So I think whilst the absolute values might be insignificant, I think the percentages are significant. To be over budget by 147% is, I think, is significant. So I'm wondering whether.
Yeah, I think with this, we have set sort of 100K, typically, some of the small ones that might be say 50, but yes, as a percentage, I would expect to comment on that too. I mean, we just got to it. So yeah, there's 77K, I would expect to comment on that too. And I can pass that on. They need to comment.
Yeah, I think I don't know whether it's 20% or 10%.
Yeah.
There needs to be a percentage trigger, not just an absolute trigger.
Terry, do you have a question?
No. Good to get good comments.
That's a good point, Peter, too, that it's relative. There's a relativity factor involved in that. Because, there is that number attributed to sort of trigger some interest. But, it might be a budget of only $50,000, but if it's 300%, I think that's really interesting.
And could I just make another request on page 147, so the very last page? I'm looking at the rates age balance, and we're looking at it for 2020, 2021, 2022, where I assume when I look at July, it's saying that's the figure that we've struck the rates at. Correct. Right. It would be helpful, I think, for the comparisons once again, to be looking at percentages, because obviously in theory, we should always be above 2020 because we struck rates up here rather than at this level. Right. But it's kind of, we're looking at the collections and is this normal? You know, we are at 25% of collections or whatever it is. So probably just on the top of each of those bars, some sort of percentage of, you know, how far through we are, because we're going to end up, come June, we hopefully end up at 0.
Yeah, yes,
right.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So once again, we're talking about progress based on percentages rather than progress based on absolute values. Like, are we doing better than our collections last year, percentage wise?
Yeah. Is that easy to add?
Yeah, but I think it is percentage of collections as of total rates.
Well, just as, I mean, here we're just we're tracking through, and coming in September, it looks to me like we collected 15% of the rates or something like that. Yeah. Whereas in 2020, it looked like we might have collected 10% or something like that. Yeah. Just if we're going to be comparing year for year, we should be comparing on percentages, not on absolute values, because we've got different starting point.
Yeah. The only part of it is that, like, some of the rates outstanding, so it's not just like this year's rates that are outstanding, right? Because there's other balances from previous years. They probably need to be thought through, but
okay, well,
we can think about.
Yeah, I think about that. See, think about it. Just, I think it would make the bar chart much more useful. Yeah.
I think, hey, this is commentary. A lot of the stuff is just keeping us what's going on. So
Yeah.
Feel what's going on.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. So very detailed.
So, Hayden, thank you. What I'd like to do is, unless there are any more questions of discussion.
I didn't have one for Hayden, but just wanted to get sort of an update with the delays around the procurement materials for the Whitianga transfer station.
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, it says in here, what page am I on? Page 45, around the 145, sorry, the Whitianga refuel station. And then commentary 0.5 underneath, there's a 3-month delay, expect an approximate 3-month delay. I wanted to see if we could get an update around that project.
Through the chair, so we are suffering. We are suffering from some quite serious delays across our capital program. So I don't have an update specifically on the Whitianga transfer station, but we're just trying to keep that on moving as much as we can. Obviously, that transfer station project has a number of mechanical and electrical components, quite high, as well as obviously a lot of sealing and concrete. So yeah, so we're looking at revising that program.
So was it in March?
Yeah, it wasn't in March. I haven't heard any update on March yet, so I haven't heard anything. So it's not within March, but the programming the time every month we're reviewing it. So that's something that we'll just keep council up to date with. Let you know if there's any significant delays to that program.
Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, just following on from Rika. So we should prepare ourselves for the capital program not to be fully enacted. We'll prepare ourselves for a level of finished work.
Yeah, through the chair, that would be our pragmatic approach to preparing ourselves for. So as Hayden mentioned, my team are going through doing the revisions on the capital program, the October revisions at the moment, working with the finance team, the Hayden's team. We've got some serious delays, as all councils and everyone does, around procurement and supply chain disruption. We obviously thought, as a lot of people, that after COVID, things would really kind of speed up and get back to a bit more kind of normality. That hasn't really happened yet. So we're really still suffering from those supply chain disruptions. We're suffering from workforce shortages. We're suffering from COVID impacts, with staff and particularly contractors and stuff, they can't get to jobs. So based on all those challenges and delays, we are having to get realistic about what we can deliver in our CapEx program for the year. So yes, as Councillor Walker's noted, we'll be pulling that back to something that's realistic that can actually deliver. So
where we've got high visibility programs like the transfer station for the owner, we've got the resource centre lined up to get started, and all the messaging so far has been March, that might need to be, they might need to review.
Sooner rather than later,
Sooner
maybe.
rather than later.
So through the chair, it's a good point. There are always right balance. Go and kind of alarm or people say, oh, we're not going to that much, with knowing actually when we are going to hit. So once we get to it, get some confidence and say, well, it's not going to be March, it's going to be May. But that's what I'm trying to get to. That kind of, it's a balance. We don't hold off. So once we have a better understanding, you're right, we make sure we've got our communication really well with our stakeholders and our communities who are waiting for us to deliver on these commitments that we've made. There's reasons why we may not be able to make sure we communicate.
Thank you, Bruce.
And there's one more, personnel, project manager, are you comfortable with your staffing at the moment, or are you still searching?
Chair, not comfortable, no. So we're still searching. Project managers are particularly hard to find, as are engineers and planners, and a number of other areas across the whole business. But concentrating on project managers, there's so much work out there at the moment, across all sectors, delivering projects across the country, that we're really challenged to try and find people to fill those roles. So we're still trying, we're trying to arrange different things. We're having to contract additional short-term resources, which is more expensive, but we need to try and keep things moving. So yes, so it's a real juggling act.
Can I just make one suggestion? Many years ago, I was on a committee, had quite a big budget, and the accountant used to do 3 bullet points at the beginning. These are the most important things, boom, 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 and then contain the stuff. We sort of, it's the things you think are important, which would help us, because I found that very helpful, because pages of looking at stuff sometimes, a bullet point one is quite helpful to start with.
Thank you, Gary. So I think I need a mover and a seconder to receive the chief executive report. I do, yes. Mr. Step. Sorry, Peter as a mover.
Yep.
And Mr. Seconder. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
And
I'd like to do a vote of thanks to Hayden and his crew. They make a good job. It's a lot of work going on.
Could I just add to that? I think it was a bunch of really readable reports. Really good. I found them very accessible and understandable. And I went into it fearful, but it was actually really, really good, very informative and well constructed report.
did you hear that, Hayden? Thank you. All right. We don't have anything else on the agenda, so at the moment, unless I check with my governance team that I'm doing this right, I declare the meeting closed, and thank you very much, everyone.
Hey,
Thank you.
well done.